I'm thrilled to welcome all of you to this exciting evening where we're going to hopefully be combining Torah learning with the fun and practical side of making food in preparation for Shavuot. And I want to just take 2 minutes to tell you a little bit about the Eden Center and why we're hosting this evening before I turn it over to our amazingly talented speakers. About 25 years ago, I began doing research on women's interaction with Taharat HaMishpacha, and I asked women from a broad spectrum of the Jewish community, what does mikvah mean to you? And the findings were so interesting that I ended up writing my doctorate about men and women's experiences of keeping Taharat HaMishpacha and going to the mikvah. And I don't know exactly what I expected to hear when I started talking to people about mikvah at that very young age. And the fact that they trusted me and opened up was really incredible. But as you can imagine, I heard a really wide range of things, from women who shared that they love going to the mikveh and see it as a personal spa day, to women who hated it, and really everything in between. And I think what really left an impression on me was hearing women's stories, from women who cried about how hard it was to go to the mikveh after a miscarriage, to those who felt especially vulnerable and conscious of their bodies when they went to the mikveh and found it to be a chore, and then unfortunately described that the intimacy after mikveh could be as much of a chore, to the woman who shared that mikveh was her only tool to protect herself from an abusive husband. And I also heard from those struggling at various stages of marriage to find satisfaction and intimacy and to balance their needs as a couple. And when I heard all of these stories, I understood that when we talk about mikvah, we're really talking about fertility, about sexuality, about body, about relationships, about a whole wide range of things, not just about the spiritual and my connection with God, but also my connection in a much larger way. And I asked myself, where are we discussing these things? Where are we discussing in the Jewish community healthy sexuality, the changes that happen over life in our bodies during menopause, or in our relationship, and all the different kinds of things that life can throw in our way? And I asked, shouldn't it or couldn't it be surrounding the mikvah? What happened to the idea of mikvah being the opportunity for enriched spiritual consciousness, for connection to our bodies and our sexuality, an opportunity for knowledge and healing, a sense of kedusha in our own personal lives? And that really, those questions really led me to found the Eden Center, to strengthen women's relationship to the mikvah, improve the experience of mikvah for the entire community, and connect it to our physical, our emotional, and our spiritual health and intimacy through programs, resources, enrichment. And we really try to work to cultivate and a community, to create community that feels passionate about mikvah and feels empowered to add our own voices, to make it relevant, to recognize and discuss the struggles. And we address these things. The Eden Center addresses these topics from a wide variety of angles, from our recent webinars about intimacy at different life stages, to printed resources for women who are going through infertility or loss, to a breast cancer self-awareness poster that we hang in the mikvah, to an active blog, a weekly Parsha podcast called Wisdom and Wellness for Women, our Chatan and Kala teacher training courses and mikvah attendant courses with an emphasis on sensitivity and recognizing the needs of every single person who's coming to the mikvah. And Baruch Hashem, we are about to launch this online. So if you're interested in becoming a mikvah lady, please join us. But all of that is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm not going to take more time to explore more things. I really invite you to look at our website. And I'll put the link in the chat afterward. But when this whole global pandemic started, we really weren't sure that we were going to have much to do. But actually, this has been a really interesting moment for us, because there has been so much that has come up about mikvah, about intimacy, about sexual health. And I actually think we've never been busier. So it's been heartening for me as the founder of the Eden Center to see how crucial our work is, how much of a need there has been, and the ways that we've been able to provide for women in the community in terms of guidance around mikvah right now, in terms of, you know, their intimate lives. We've been able to create forums and really give information for mikvah personnel, especially mikvah attendants, and for community leaders who are looking for direction on what they should be doing in their own communities around the world, be it the calls I got from England or Australia, communities in America. And every day new things really come up that I see we are uniquely positioned to address. So tonight's program is educational, but it's also fun, sharing Torah, passion for cooking and fun, raising money and awareness about the Eden Center. It's meant to be a combination and an exploration of love and relationships with Shavuot. And I'm also in charge of making sure that everyone things are off. We're going to meet everybody. Okay. Sorry for that loss of train of thought. Tonight is hopefully going to be that combination of the exploration of relationship through Sefer Rut and the connection to us as a community of women through the fun and practical preparation for Shavuot. And, you know, really men and women do the preparation. But it's something like mikvah, getting ready for Chag, is something that we all do and it connects us, but we often don't speak about it. Sometimes it's more of a chore and sometimes it's something we look forward to, but in the end, we have to do it. So I'm hoping tonight we'll do it in a way that will be fun and inspiring. I really want to thank you all for participating. I want to really begin by thanking Yael and Devorah in advance for what they're going to share with us tonight. And I want to just give a quick shout out to Bela Samter, Jordana Shore, Miriam Casper, and Audrey Levant, who really organized this from, you know, nothing, and to another amazing volunteer, Ayala Manis, who tied it all together at the back end. This kind of programming and all the work of the Eden Center could, can, and will only continue with the support of people like every single one of you on this call, through volunteering or your financial partnership. And I'd like you to consider making a donation of your time or making a financial donation at a sponsorship level that will allow our programming to continue. And I will, again, put a link in the chat where you can donate. In that vein, I want to thank Yedida Lubin and Avi Rosenstein, who dedicated this evening in memory of Deanna Redden Lubin, who, from all that I've heard, was an incredible woman who loved community and brought everyone together, especially at the Chagim, and was really a true role model of family and passing on of tradition. So I want to just start really quickly with Yedida. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Naomi. First of all, thank you everyone for coming. I see some people from Memphis. It's really great to see you, my mom's friends and relatives. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to sponsor this evening. Like Naomi spoke about, Taharat HaMishpacha as a women's mitzvah. Challah is another one of the three that people hold up as women's mitzvot, and everyone that knew my mother knew how much she loved making challah, teaching people to make challah. She actually would do cooking demonstrations at the Center for Southern Folklore at a heritage festival every summer. So making focaccia with Devorah is actually a very appropriate thing to do in her memory. And she loved the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. She actually got to meet Yael Ziegler a couple of times. I don't know if Yael remembers that. So it was very meaningful to me to be able to dedicate this evening in her memory. Chag Sameach to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we really do appreciate your partnership on this and a number of other things that we've worked on together. So thank you. So with no further ado, I want to introduce our first presenter. Dr. Yael Ziegler is a master Tanakh teacher. She wrote the Magi commentary on Sefer Rut, and tonight she's going to share her insights on Ruth and Boaz. Is this a biblical love story? Take it away, Yael.
Okay, thank you, Naomi.
But before we see your share screen, can we just see you for a second?
Oh, you don't see me? Yeah, I should be in the corner of your,
Okay. Well,
you don't see?
Get you up there.
Okay. It's an honor to speak in memory of your mother, Yedida. And it's a great privilege to speak for the Eden Center, which does so much and so many important things. I'm also so happy to partner with my dear friend, Devorah. And, you know, I love to cook. I especially love to cook milchit. So I especially love to cook for Shavuot. So this is going to be fun to see what Devorah has in mind for us. Unfortunately, we are going to be also dedicating the shiur to the refuah shlema of Devorah's mother, Gila Esther Bat Chaya Penina, who's in the hospital. So we're just going to, you know, hope that this shiur and evening will also be towards her refuah shlema. And now I'm going to turn to our story, to the story of Ruth. I think my experience has been that people really, really love Megillat Rut. It's just, they love it. It's a great book. It's a book that makes people feel good. And of course, part of that is because of the story of the relationship between Boaz and Ruth. And we all love a good love story, right? The Tanakh has a few of those, not that many, but I would mention Yaakov and Rachel as, you know, one of the primary love stories in Tanakh. Of course, Shir Hashirim, which has, you know, this very well developed love story, which is understood in different ways by Chazal. But the question that I want to ask tonight is, you know, is the story of Boaz and Ruth a love story? And many scholars answer yes, right? And many would like to include this story in the category of biblical love stories. It, of course, is a book that has this rather pastoral, sweet setting, right? You have this sense of, like, you know, wheat fields swaying in the wind. There is a meeting by a well, right? Even though the word be'er does not appear in Megillat Rut, but we do have Boaz saying to Ruth that if she gets thirsty, v'shatit me'asher yishavun ha'ne'arim, you can drink from that which the boys have drawn. And so there is a well there in the field, and we know that couples tend to meet next to wells. We have the sense that Boaz's attention is immediately drawn to Ruth, right? As soon as he gets to the field, he immediately turns to the Na'ar Hanitzav ala Kotzrim, to the foreman, and he says, Lemi hanara hazot, right? Who is this girl? Which suggests that he is, you know, she's drawn his attention in some way or another. And of course, what follows is Boaz's supreme kindness and generosity, which may or may not suggest interest, right? Of course, their eventual meeting on the threshing floor at night is a very charged meeting, the one that we have in Perek Gimel, and it does conclude with Boaz's promise that he will ensure Ruth's marriage immediately, the very next day. And this is, of course, what happens. Without a pause, Boaz takes care of things the very next day, and the story seems to proceed rather smoothly, a few small bumps in the middle, but very sweetly, and it concludes in marriage. Blessings, harmony, right? That's the story, and that's why we love the story, because the story is harmonious, and it ends well, right? We love a love story, but we also love a story that concludes with, and they lived happily ever after, ve'osher, right? But is this really a love story? Now, I'm going to argue that it's not, right? And that's against many of the scholars who argue that it is, not because I don't appreciate or desire a good biblical love story, but because I think that the marriage of Boaz and Ruth has a much more important objective. And I think that if we regard this story as a love story, we're going to miss the most important objectives of the book. We're going to miss the purpose of the book. We're going to miss the message of the book. And I think we'll really only see it if we first pay attention to what this story is really about. And it's not a love story. Which, you know, doesn't mean that Boaz and Ruth don't wind up loving each other. We just, that's not part of the story. You know, I assume that happens, but that's not part of the story. So let's begin with the facts. The word love appears once in the book of Ruth, right? All the way at the end. to describe Ruth's love for Naomi, right? So look here in source number 1, in Ruth Perek Daled, right? When the women are blessing Ruth at the end of the book, and they say, Ki chalatech, for your daughter-in-law, asher ahavatech yiladatu, your daughter-in-law that loves you, she has given birth to him. Asher hi tovalach mishiv'a banim. She is better for you than 7 sons, which in fact she is, right? But the plot of the Megillah revolves around Ruth's love for Naomi, right? Her devotion to Naomi, her willingness to sacrifice everything for Naomi, including her future, her family, her own well-being, and her endeavor to provide Naomi with continuity, with food. That's what the story is about. And so it doesn't particularly surprise me that the only time that we have the word ahav in the book is about Ruth's love for Naomi, because that is really a centrally featured part of the book. As far as relationships go, it's the relationship between Ruth and Naomi that moves the book forward. And of course, the relationship between Boaz and Ruth seems to be about providing continuity for Naomi. Now, I'll say a couple other things that I think indicate that, in fact, this is not a love story. First of all, let's note that neither Ruth nor Boaz are described in terms of their physical description, right? We don't know whether Boaz is handsome. We don't know whether or not Ruth is beautiful, right? This is not part of the story. That is, of course, part of many of the other stories, love stories in Tanakh, certainly part of the Yaakov and Rachel story. We won't get into that right now, but we have no idea what Ruth looks like. Of course, the Chazal talk about her being one of the most beautiful women, and we don't know that from the text itself. But more significantly, it doesn't appear that Boaz at any point loves Ruth or even particularly desires to marry her. Now, I'll say a couple of things. First of all, I think it's interesting that Boaz repeatedly refers to Ruth as BT, my daughter, right? A word that is very affectionate in a paternal way, but certainly not one that suggests desire, right? This is, even true that he refers to her as BT at that moment of, that sort of charged moment on the threshing floor in the middle of the night, that moment of heightened expectations when Boaz encounters Ruth lying rather suggestively at his feet. And when he realizes that she's Ruth, he blesses her kindly, you might even say tenderly, but not amorously. Look at what he says to her here in Ruth Perek Gimel Pasuk Yud. I have my cursor on it. I hope you can see. Vayomer, and he says to her, Brucha at laHashem biti. Blessed are you to God, my daughter. Heitav chastech acharon min harishon. Your second kindness was even greater than your first kindness. Levilti lechet acharei habachurim im dal ve'im ashir. That you did not go after the young man, whether rich or poor, but instead he seems to regard Ruth's actions towards him as a chesed that Ruth is doing for Naomi, which is the second chesed that Ruth did for Naomi. The first one, of course, being that she, left Moab and cleaved to Naomi and stayed with Naomi, despite the fact that Naomi tells her very unequivocally that she will not have marriage, that she will not have family, that she will not have children or a future if she stays with Naomi. So that obviously is a great act of chesed, but Boaz recognizes that the second act, the act of agreeing to go to Boaz in the middle of the night and offer herself to Boaz and marry Boaz, this too is an act of chesed. She would have been much better off marrying a young man, rich or poor, it doesn't matter. But Boaz here is clearly stating that he is elderly and it makes no sense for Ruth to have come. But he does not regard this as an act of love. And, he himself refers to her as BT. But perhaps, we also have to note that Ruth has just spent an entire season in Boaz's field without Boaz pursuing the possibility of marrying her. And it is that which leads Naomi to hatch this rather elaborate and suggestive plan in order to find some kind of security and future for Ruth and, of course, for herself as well. But that's because even after that initial meeting in the field between Ruth and Boaz, Boaz never approaches Ruth again throughout the duration of the harvest. so that, Naomi feels that she has no choice other than to send Ruth to the field, to the threshing floor in the middle of the night. Now, it does become clear eventually that the reason that Boaz has not approached Ruth throughout the harvest season is because there is a closer relative than he, the famous Ploni Almoni. And Boaz expects that this other relative has the obligation and the prerogative to step up and marry Ruth. But here is the significant point. When Ruth informs Boaz that he is the Goel, namely that he should marry her, look at his response, right? She says to him here in Perek Gimel Pasuk Tet, Anochi Ruth amatecha ufarastach nafecha al amatcha ki Goel ata, right? Spread your wings or spread your coat over your maidservant, for you are the Goel, you are the Redeemer. Look at what he says to her. He says, Ve'ata ki omnam ki Goel anochi. He says, and now I am in fact that Goel. V'gam yesh Goel karov mimeni. And yet there is a closer Redeemer than me. There's a relative who is closer to me. He's explaining to Ruth why he didn't approach her and why even now it's not his right to marry her. And look at what he says. Lini halayla, lie here tonight. V'hayava boker, it will be in the morning. Im yigalech, if he shall redeem you. Tov, yigal, it is good, he will redeem you. V'im lo yachpot l'goalech, but if he doesn't wish to redeem you, ugalti chanochi, I will redeem you. Chai Hashem, I swear by God. Shichvi ad haboker, lie here tonight. Either he will redeem you or I will redeem you. By tomorrow, this story will reach some sort of resolution. Of course, that is what happens. But what's striking for our purposes is that Boaz uses the word tov. Boaz seems fine with the notion that someone else will marry Ruth. This does not seem to be the speech of a love-struck man, right? He doesn't say, well, it's really not my right. I'm going to let him do it, but I'd really rather be the one to do it. That's not what he says. He says, it's good. He will redeem you. Now, I actually think that this might be one of the reasons that there is this famous idea in Chazal, which the Ibn Ezra brings and then debunks, which is that Tov is actually the name of the Goel, of Ploni Almoni. Ploni Almoni, of course, loses his name. Whatever his name is, he doesn't deserve a name because he refuses to uphold the name of the dead person, namely, of course, Elimelech. So he loses his name, but Chazal say that his name was Tov, right? Let's just look here at what the Ibn Ezra says. Yesh omrim ki Tov haya shem haGoel. Some people say that Tov was the name of the Goel, and I brought for you these two midrashim, which actually say that. Oh, I think that what Chazal are trying to sort of do is to mitigate maybe that sense that Boaz is perfectly fine with someone else marrying Ruth. How could he say Tov about someone else marrying Ruth? It must be that it's the name of the Goel, and we should really be reading this sentence as follows. V'hayav boker will be in the morning. Imi galech Tov. If Tov will redeem you, you go. He'll redeem you. But not that it's good that someone else should redeem you. Okay, but in my reading, which I think, the Ibn Ezra notes is definitely the shot, right? Really, Boaz is saying, it's good. If whoever redeems you, it's good. It could be me, it could be him. That's immaterial. The important goal is to get Ruth married. And of course, after Ruth does marry Boaz, which she does marry Boaz, Boaz and Ruth disappear from the story. We actually never hear about them again. I'm assuming they lived happily ever after. They certainly did birth the Davidic dynasty, which is, of course, the ultimate goal, but we actually never hear anything about them again. And so, if this is not a love story, what is that more important goal that I mentioned is so important for me that I am really insistent on not viewing this story as a love story? What is the nature of the relationship between both Boaz and Ruth? What is the nature of their marriage? I think that Boaz and Ruth's marriage is about assuming responsibility for the other. It is about kindness. It's about chesed shel emet. It is about true kindness. It is about a deep, abiding sense of doing what is right for a family member. consider the word geula, right? The word geula, which appears over and over in this chapter to presumably to mean marriage, right? Look at what Ruth says. Ufarasta chnafecha al amatcha ki goel ata. She says to Boaz, spread your cloak over me, for you are the goel. What does this mean, that he is the goel, right? It seems to mean he is the one who has the responsibility to marry Ruth. But the word goel in Tanakh never appears with the meaning of marriage, right? So what is it doing here in this Megillah with this particular meaning? And of course, we are so accustomed to associating the word goel, the idea of geula, with national redemption that God does for his people. That is the primary meaning of the word geula among the Nevi'im, especially Yeshayahu, right? But that is actually not the primary meaning of the word geula in the Torah. In the Torah, the word geula almost always is used about a person assuming responsibility for their kinsman, for their fellow family member. Whether we are talking about what we read in last week's Parsha, a week and a half ago, in Vayikra Perek Kafhei, Geulat Karka, redeeming the land of your kinsman, or redeeming your kinsman from slavery, or Goel Hadam, the one who takes revenge for the blood spilling of his kinsmen, right? The word Geulah in the Torah is about Ben Adam L'Chavero. It is about assuming responsibility for your relative. Really only twice in Tanakh, to the best of my knowledge, this word is used in the conventional sense, or the sense that I should say that we're most used to, in which God redeems the people. Both of these cases are in the context of Yetziat Mitzrayim. One is in the Shonot of Geulah, where we have V'ga'alti etchem in Shmot Perek Vav, and the other is in Shirat Hayam, Am Zu Ga'alta. But most of the places in Tanakh where we have the word Geulah, it is about helping a family member in need, and it's used in all sorts of different contexts. And I think that it's used uniquely here in Megillat Rut, but within a similar context as the way that it appears in the Torah. The story here is about helping your family. It is about making sure that you assume responsibility for your family's well-being. In this particular case, it means marrying Ruth. Now, what's important, I think, to understand is that during this time period, we have a huge problem in Am Yisrael. We have a huge problem in the nation, particularly when it comes to assuming responsibility for the other. We have a problem of national unity. We have a problem of loyalty. We have a problem of commitment. We lost the family feeling. And therefore, it doesn't surprise me that in the book of Shoftim, which is a period in which, as I said, social relationships and the nation has begun to unravel, social relationships unravel, and therefore the nation is no longer acting as a unified entity. Throughout the period, or throughout the book of Judges, all 21 chapters, we have the word Geulah exactly 0 times. It never appears. Geulah is entirely absent from Sefer Shoftim. I think that also in Megillat Rut, we have a sense that the idea of Geulah has been lost. Elimelech and Machlon and Chilion leave the people during the period of the Ra'av. They do not take responsibility for the other. Look at what this Gemara in Bava Batra says when they are explaining the different names of the different figures in the Megillah. So they suggest that Machlon and Chilion are referred to in a pasuk in Divrei Yamim Aleph Perek Daled as Saraf and Yoash. And they ask the question, if their names are Machlon and Chilion, why are they called Saraf and Yoash? So look at what it says here. He is called Yoash, Shenityashu min HaGeulah. They despaired of Geulah. This is the period of the judges. This is the period of Megillat Rut. They have no more hope in national redemption because there are no proper social interactions. People aren't taking responsibility for each other. In a situation in which people aren't taking responsibility for each other, the nation falls apart, and God no longer wants to take responsibility for the nation. And so Ploni Almoni's actions of saying, Lo uchal lig'oli pen ashchit et nachalati ge'al lecha ata et ge'ulati ki lo uchal lig'ol. He goes into this state of panic when they tell him, you have to marry Ruth. He says, oh, no, I couldn't possibly do that. Well, that is very much in keeping with what is going on during the period of the judges. But Boaz is different. Boaz readily and promptly marries Ruth. Boaz's actions role model for the people how to assume responsibility for their brethren, for their family members, how to establish a society which is founded on seeing the other, which is founded on recognizing your responsibility to your family members, to your community, to your nation. And that's the same thing that he says about Ruth. Ruth's devotion to Naomi is what leads her to marry Boaz. Boaz's devotion to the act of social responsibility, to the act of Geulah, is what causes him to marry Ruth. This is the message of this marriage. And it's this act which restores society during this period of the judges, which is such a problematic period. Boaz moves us towards a better period, a period of melucha, of kingship, in which the nation comes together and rebuilds a society on commitment, loyalty, assumption of responsibility, being able to see the other. It is a remarkable fact that even though in Megillat Rut, in the first 2 chapters of the book, until Perek Bet, Pasuk Kaf, the word Geulah didn't appear once. Starting from Perek Bet, Pasuk Kaf, when Naomi recognizes that Boaz might be a potential Goel, Karov lanu ha'ish, mi goalenuhu, the word Goel appears in the next 2 chapters of Megillat Rut 22 times. You heard me, 22 times. That is an incredible amount of times in 2 chapters. So altogether in Megillat Rut, the word Geulah appears 23 times. That means that we have moved this book and society at this time to the ability to do Geulah, all of which leads to a simple conclusion. The book of Ruth is a heroic story of people of good character, of people of virtue. It is not a love story, in my opinion, but it is a story that sets in motion the future of the Jewish nation, that enables families to once again take responsibility for each other, and also the nation to come together under the auspices of the Davidic dynasty, which is what Boaz and Ruth produce, in a way that restores Geulah, social responsibility among the people. And I want to conclude by making one additional point that this marriage brings about. And it's not only Geulah between members of a family, and it's not only Geulah on a national plane, in other words, creating a society which is founded in Geulah, but the marriage between Ruth and Boaz also brings about Mashiach. It also brings about the conventional sense of Geulah, namely when God will redeem his nation. And in fact, there's a wonderful midrash, which is brought here in the Zohar, which I'm going to read for you. It's based on this pasuk, which we read before, Perek Gimel, Pasuk Yud Gimel. Lini halayla, Boaz says, sleep here tonight. V'hayav haboker, it will be in the morning. Im yigalech tov yigal. If he will redeem you, it's good. Im lo yachpotz l'golech, but if he doesn't desire to redeem you, ugaltich anochi chai Hashem shichvi ad haboker. Well, the Zohar says this, in fact, is not simply Boaz speaking to Ruth. This is God speaking to Am Yisrael during the time of the exile. He says, Lini halayla, sleep through this night of exile. Have hashta begaluta. Right now you are in galut. The ahige levanecha taman beoraita. Uve uvdin tabin. You are there busily teaching your children how to learn Torah and how to do good deeds. Ve'im yisadhon alecha ovdim tavin lemifrak lach yifrok. If your good deeds testify to you that you should be redeemed, you'll be redeemed. Ve'im lav, but if you don't have good deeds, ugialtich anochim chai Hashem. I still will redeem you, swears God. Just wait for the morning, right? So we have here this idea that embedded within Megillat Rut is this idea that Megillat Rut births not just a new kind of social responsibility between people, between members of a family, between members of a nation, but it also suggests that God is learning from Boaz. In other words, that once God sees that human beings are taking responsibility for each other, God will take responsibility for his nation as well. There's a wonderful midrash that seems to suggest this, and I'll close with this midrash. The midrash says, Boaz asa et shelo, Ruth asa et shala, Naomi asa et shala, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Af ani ese et sheli, right? Boaz does his part, Ruth does her part, Naomi does her part. God says, I too will do my part. And so these readings suggest that even if the marriage in the book of Ruth is not a love story, it is much more than a love story. Its ramifications are not just for the family of Naomi and not just for Am Yisrael during the period of the Shoftim, but the ramifications of learning from Boaz how to take responsibility for the other also ultimately impact on the ultimate geula that God will do once he recognizes that we are taking responsibility for each other as well. So I wish you all, first of all, a Chag Sameach, and also an enjoyable recipe and cooking session. And I thank you all for your patience.
Thank you so much for that incredible shiur, and also for sharing with us ideas about relationships that are much more than just the superficial love story, but are really about what a relationship needs to be as a model in terms of seeing each other, in terms of taking responsibility, in terms of all the different things that you mentioned, chesed within relationship, and then building on that to a relationship to God seems like quite a recipe for amazing, an amazing marriage and beyond. So thank you, Yael. That is great. And it also sets the stage for us turning to the second half of this night. And I didn't say before, but I think that Yael and Devorah are sort of a dynamic duo in the sense that they're neighbors and longtime friends, which I didn't say before. And I don't know if they've ever combined their talents in this way, but I recall, maybe incorrectly, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that when your kids were smaller, I have this vague recollection of you're doing Yam Suf together for Pesach one time, and creating that in your houses.
We did. We made a Kriyat Yam Suf. We decorated it and we walked through. We shared. We had a house right next to each other. And so
I think that Emily did it.
And Emily, yes.
I think she was there.
And I think she's on here now. So I don't know.
Now, and she was there.
And George was there.
There you go.
Thanks all of our friends for watching us.
So it's amazing. It brings it all together. So, but I have to say also, first of all, Devorah, thank you for being on with all that's going on in your personal life, and your mother should really have a refuah shlema, and this should be lizchuta and refuata. But I have to say that if I think of people who have an amazing relationship in their life, who can spend 24/7 doing everything together, you and your husband exemplify that for me as co-owners of Papa Melech and as educational leaders who've done educational endeavors on so many different levels. You really exemplify. So for me, I think that's the perfect segue from Yael shiur into what you'll share now. And thank you also for presenting.
So thank you, of course. I will tell you a hilarious story. So my mom is in the hospital, and I'm so grateful to Yael that we put her name out there. And of course, in merit of any small thing that I could do, it should be a refuah shalema. Last night, David and I got back from the hospital at about 11, and I said to David, listen, I got this thing going tomorrow night at the Eden Center. I got to start preparing. And at 11:30 at night, we start making the mousse so that I can make sure that I have gotten it right. And Dave turns to me at some point. He says, you know, like, maybe we should take a cooking class together one day. And I said, no more together, no more together, enough. The bakery, there's too much. We need to do things more separately. And even as I've said that, I have forced him to come into work tonight, and he's gonna come onto this call at some point to help me out. So love story, of course, we wish it on everyone. Also, people maybe should have separate careers. Tonight, I'm so happy to be here. Nomi, really thank you for calling and suggesting this. It's a lot of fun. Bela, thank you for putting up with me in the middle of Corona life and bakery life leading into Shavuot. It's a bit of a crazy time. And I'm thrilled that it can happen. Secretly, I'm also thrilled that I'm doing this here in Pat Lamelech and not in my house. One, because my kitchen is clean right now and I want to keep it that way. And two, because in my work life, I never get to come back here. It's full of people who know what they're doing. And I am a very nice person, but an amateur at best. So it feels kind of like I'm invited to the cool kids table, even though they're not here, to sort of use their stuff and play around a bit to make a few things for Shavuot. I guess there are two different ways to look at Shavuot. When we were growing up, certainly, and all Chagim in general, you would look at Chagim as bombastic. What is the major miracle that happened that we're celebrating, right? Are we celebrating Yitziat Mitzrayim? Are we celebrating Matan Torah? But as we, or certainly as I, got a little bit older, there's always this undercurrent of agriculture that's connected to each of the major Chagim. So usually when we look at a Chag, we look at the major miracle, but there's a part of my life, certainly once David and I started a small artisan bakery that focuses in on harvest, there's a part of my life that really connects to this idea of what's happening in the world. Certainly in the time of Corona, we're watching so many people sort of go back to their roots. I can't tell you how many people have asked us questions about sourdough, how many bakers are out there starting the sourdough process, which is really encouraging and exciting. But there's something very nice about saying Shavuot, we're really celebrating harvest, right? We plant our first, we plant in Sukkot. The first harvest is around Pesach, and then we start counting to get to day 49, also Matan Torah. But also in the world of agriculture, we're really looking at something very, very simple. It's the time that we have grain, right? It's the time that we harvest. It's the time that we can start milling and we have grain. So in that vein, part of what we look at when we look at Shavuot is really a celebration of agriculture. Yael, my daughter, who's tech right now, hi Yael, back from Australia. Yael just did this great thing for Shavuot, and she was talking about a little piece of what she enjoys learning. And she found this great series of articles that talked about what Shavuot was like in pre-state Israel, when it wasn't connected necessarily to a religious, but more, you know, a grand countrywide thing. And it was really the celebration of new everything. New tractors, new babies, harvest. It was all sort of bundled together in newness. So tonight we're gonna do a couple of things. We're gonna make focaccias, and we're gonna make a series of mousses. You can either head to your kitchen and do it, or I'm gonna talk it out. You have the recipes in front of you. Thanks to the hard work of Bela and Nomi, I think you have the recipes. If not, feel free to jot them down now. What we're gonna work on is
Devorah. They're gonna get them afterward with all the
I see. It's like the goodie bag at the end of the party.
Exactly.
If you stay till the end, you will learn the recipe. I'm gonna shout it out to you right now. We're gonna start actually, I think we're gonna start maybe slowly with this idea of mousses. I'm very happy that George is still on the call, because George, come on, mousses. Hi. The way that we're gonna make a mousse, and my brother has this great series, I forget if it's Bon Appetit, I don't remember who put it out. There's a great series that has gone out of how to make it with a really master chef, how to make it as a normal human being, and how to sort of have the life hack. I'm gonna try and do something between the life hack and the normal human being. So what we're gonna do today is we're going to do a white chocolate cheese mousse, and we're gonna do it with a blueberry, I wanna call it a coulis on the bottom, but I'm wrong. So I've got a bunch of things set up here. And what I'm gonna start with is I'm gonna start with 2 cups of blueberries and 1 cup of sugar. When you're making a coulis, I have been told, I have bothered my pastry chef all week now, a coulis is really very, very strained and clear. What we're doing, he actually says, is more of a compote. Where I came from, that was what your Polish grandmother made, and it had like heavy syrup and fruit. That's not what it is, at least anyway, it's a return to. For every 2 cups of whatever fruit you're choosing, you're gonna pick 1 cup of sugar. You're gonna stick it in your pan, and you're gonna be patient. I am not good at patient. I've lost my recording. The host has asked you to start your video. Sorry about that. I'm not wonderfully patient. And so we're gonna start this. We're gonna put it onto our little stovetop there. And we're going to sort of let it take time to work together, blend together. And that's gonna take you about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. Yael's gonna either turn it on or turn it off. You're gonna watch what happens is it will get into a thicker consistency as the sugar melts. Once the sugar melts, you can just turn it off. Once the sugar melts, it has a thicker consistency. Once that happens, we're just gonna put it onto the side to cool. It's taken 20 minutes, but I have some ready-made that we're gonna use in a minute. Okay, once we have our blueberries, we're gonna start with the mousse. I'm trying to think if we should do focaccia right now. We shouldn't. For the mousse, you're gonna need the following things. Yael will be sending it out, but we're gonna start with 150 grams of white chocolate. It's really about 1.5 bars. I'm using these little round ones. I think that you can use anything. The recommendation, especially with white chocolate is fussier than regular chocolate, so you want to use a higher quality of white chocolate. And when you melt it, you want to melt it using a double boiler. That way, because you know that like 1 second grace period you have, that if it goes on 1 second too long, then you've sort of lost the chocolate. It's burnt for you. So you want to take 150 grams of white chocolate, and you want to melt it in a double boiler. And then once that's melted, again, you're going to stick it off to the side. Once it's melted, where's my melted? There. Once it's melted, you're going to add the following things. This was a big debate, actually. Vina levana, which you're going to take 115 grams of vina levana, 9% vina levana. I had no idea how to translate that into English. I wasn't even sure that there was an English.
Farmer's cheese, because
it's farmer's cheese, but I would have had no idea. I didn't even know that such a thing existed in America. But I really thought it was like the Zionist dream. Like, you move to Israel and you can have vina levana. You live somewhere else, sorry, you're out of luck. But apparently you're not out of luck. There's farmer cheese, and you're going to take about 115 grams of that, and you are going to mix it in with your melted chocolate, and you're going to take 210 grams of gvinat shemenet, of cream cheese, and you're going to mix those all together. When all of those things are mixed, you're going to start, I'm not sure how much noise I should make, but you're going to start with your whipped cream. Whipped cream and always just the littlest bit of icing sugar. You're going to turn it on to whip. I don't know how to turn it on. Can you help me? I did. You're going to turn it on to whip the cream. And once you have that in stiff peaks, what you're going to end up doing, right? You're going to end up pulling them all together. So we've done our whipped cream is mixing now. We've melted our white chocolate. We've added our farmer's cheese and our cream cheese, and you're going to put them all together. I'm going to grab a couple of used cups. Can you grab some for me? There's some in that. I need a spoon. We're going to let it go for a while, but
when you do that, can you move your camera back so we can see the little cups?
Oh yeah. You're looking at cups about this size. You can find them anywhere. They come in all different shapes and sizes. What we're doing is I've taken something that looks like this. I'm taking our blueberry compote or coulis, and I'm just lining the bottom of the cup with the blueberry. I've already made a mess out of it, but thankfully everything is really forgiven in desserts. The truth is that when David and I first got married, we started an age-old argument that to this day has not ended, which is David is always very concerned with the main course, and I'm always very concerned with the side dishes and desserts. When we started to run out of time, when we started making things, David would say to me, why don't you just go buy a cake? And I would say, why don't you just go buy a chicken? Meaning the thought always is that if you end the meal with something that's delicious, really all is forgiven. It's a lesson that Dina and I learned very well, and I would assume my brother also, from the copious amounts of reading my mom did with us. And Amelia Bedelia always had it right? Amelia Bedelia, as long as at the end of the day the dessert was good, everything else was sort of forgiven. I'll even say more now that we're here. In Papa Melech, when David started making sourdough bread, I thought, well, you must be crazy. Meaning sourdough bread takes 22 hours to make from start to finish. Who has 22 hours to waste on a loaf of bread? I thought that it was madness, total madness. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna go along for the ride. And Dave and I, who are not trendy people, accidentally stumbled into this trend of sourdough breads. And even when we sat and started talking about what we would make here on this cooking demonstration, Bela tossed out bread, maybe it's the harvest season. I was like, oh my gosh, bread takes forever. Meaning bread to me is the longest, most dedicated thing. I haven't touched dough in this bakery. That was our deal. Our deal was, I will do everything except for the dough. Meaning I sit in the front and drink coffee, but Dave does the real work. Tonight, I'm showing you, we're back. We're back to desserts where everything is forgiven. I put a little bit of the blueberry on the bottom. I have a piping bag and this piece that has a name that I don't know. And all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pipe it in like this. It's very simple. But remember how I promised that there are hacks to everything? Where's my little Ziploc bag? Yo, you got it. Meaning you definitely don't need a piping bag, and you definitely don't need, a piping bag, and you definitely don't need the metal piece at the end. It's great if you have it, that's fantastic, but you don't need it. Really all that you need is a Ziploc bag, and even a Ziploc bag is fancy pants if you're living in Israel. And all you want to do is you want to put your white chocolate cheesecake, also you want to make sure that it is very cold when you're doing it, into a bag. You want to cut off the edge and you want to put it in. This is already, oh, I made a little bit of a mess. I'll put out my pretty one here. This is already enough to be very fancy, and I've taken under, 2 minutes to make it. It took me more, really. This is enough to be very fancy, but then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take cookies. Now, again, in your life, if you wanna be super amazing, which I'm sure you all are in the kitchen and in life, you can make your own cookies, you can pick your kids' favorite cookies. If you wanna buy them from a store, that's totally fine. It turns out that in Papa Melech, in my store, for years, Meir, our pastry chef, has been making these spiced cookies. I would never, ever in my life eat a spiced cookie if there's something with chocolate, right? I don't need to do that. I would, but right now I have these cookies. I'm gonna take these spiced cookies and I'm gonna break them. Either with a rolling pin, which I think is the easiest thing, or my own hand, I'm gonna break them up. Once they're broken up, which they are, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit and crumble the top. So now at the end of my meal, I have a blueberry coulis base with a white chocolate cheesecake and a crumble topping. From start to finish, this entire project should take you 20 minutes. Even my non-baker friends, I promise you, simple, yes, George, I know, no shame. Even my non-baker friends, I'm telling you, it is such a simple thing to do and it upscales everything. But now let's say what you're saying to me is, Devorah, that seems really nice. I don't want the mess, it's too much in my kitchen, I don't like it. So I'm gonna say, I got you. I hear your challenge and I am going to acknowledge that challenge and I'm gonna offer up 2 different suggestions. This one is a caramel mousse without a base and a candied pecan topping. And this one is a plain vanilla mousse with a chocolate coconut topping. All of these things are super simple to do. Don't tell anyone. Here's the super simple. You're gonna whip cream the same way that we whipped cream before, right? You're gonna take your container of whipped cream, you're gonna take your tablespoon of icing sugar, you're gonna whip it up, and then you are going to add simple things that you can buy at your local baking store, wherever that baking store is. These aren't very hard to find, they're actually quite easy to find. I walked in today and I picked out a vanilla cream, here, and I picked out a caramel cream, here. And then I picked out toppings. I can do it with my crushed cookies that I did on my own, that I just spilled. But I can also do it with candied pecans. I can do it with, I don't know, the Israeli equivalent of what everybody has to have on everything, which is chopped miku pellets. I can do it with coconut. It doesn't really matter. That's something, let me say two things. That's something that is so super easy to do. And for me, I always like having kids in my kitchen with me. For reasons that are beyond me. This is such a kid-friendly activity to do that it's a no-brainer. Meaning it's a no-brainer to have whatever, just, you know, doing puffs, and depending on how you want to do it, either you can do it like this and then bring the toppings to your table and have kids create a dessert bar. So really what you can end up doing, Amelia Badili would be really proud of me, is have 3 different types of mousses and piping bags and all sorts of dessert, all sorts of toppings brought to your Shavuot table, and it sort of upscales the usual like ice cream bar. You're gonna do an upscale mousse bar for Shavuot. So I'm gonna recap it with my chocolate cheesecake. A little more complicated, a little more time invested, still easy enough. Vanilla cream and caramel. Again, with any topping that you really want. I would also say if you are a berry family, you can be putting berries out. You could be adding a berry topping, a coulis, or a compote, as it were. And that's a very simple thing to do. I want to make sure that there are no questions, so I guess if you have them, now's a great time to shout them out or to hit up chat.
So I'm gonna unmute everybody. And I hope that works.
Okay, what was your question, Eliane?
You said get docs, and then I can share the doc with you.
Do we have rice?
Okay, now I'm going to mute everybody. And if anybody has any questions, they can write it in the chat now.
I would recommend going with Gvina Levana if you have Gvina Levana. That's what I think it is. I would go with Gvina Levana. Meaning we were searching for the translation. I certainly, when I went to the store or just my freezer in this store, we were pulling out Gvina Levana. So that's my recommendation. What is icing sugar of Katz? Do you mix the whipped cream with the cheeses? Yes, you fold the whipped cream in afterwards. Meaning, so that the way that the process is gonna go is you put your blueberry and your sugar over here and you're mixing it. That's the most time consuming part of it. And I actually managed to make the entire dish while that was happening. So you're making your blueberry, that's what takes the time. And then what you're doing is you're melting the chocolate, adding the Gvina Levana, adding the cream cheese, whipping the cream, you fold the cream in, right? You're using a little bit of a lighter technique to get the cream in and working. Can you substitute lower fat Gvina Levana and light cream cheese? I mean, oh, hi, Shoshana. Yeah, I mean, I would say that the answer is yes. I don't see why not. Obviously, you're not going to get the richness that this is giving you, but there is a way to lighten it, and I would assume that that is the way to do it. What exactly is caramel cream? I'm going to show you by my fabulous assistant, Yael, who's going to pull it out over here. Meaning mine came from Label, which is the store at my corner. You're looking at it. It's just ribat chalav. That's all that it is. You don't want to use a lot of it. What you would like to do is you want to whip your cream, and then you want to put it in by the tablespoon, depending on how thick you want and how rich you want it. I use maybe 2 tablespoons in the whole thing. Do you mix? I think I've hit everything.
No. So can I ask you, Devorah?
Yeah.
Hi. So you froze at some point when you were, again, like when you're trying to mix the Gvina Levana and the wait, that's the shemenet, or shemenet is the cream cheese plus Gvina Levana, is like the farmer cheese, whatever. You're mixing
2 things that are going together, and you can mix them both into the melted chocolate. So it's melted chocolate
they're just going to fold in really well, like being cold like that, or do they need to come to room temperature, or?
The chocolate is hot, meaning once you take the chocolate off of the oven, right, it's melted.
Right.
You can wait for it to cool down a little bit. You don't need to wait for it to totally cool because then it's going to congeal. So when you're adding your gvina levana and when you're adding your cream cheese, those are going to melt a little bit with the chocolate. So you have a little bit of a thinner consistency. And then whip the cream. When you add the cream, you're going to fold it in, and that's going to give it some of its heft.
I see. Okay, thanks. It's not going to all be like clump. It's going to be nice and smooth and soft, is what it sounds.
Absolutely. Meaning you're going to refrigerate it when you're done, and then either you can pipe it right away. You want to make sure that it's cold when you pipe it, but you can refrigerate it and pipe it later, which is what I did. Meaning I made one batch last night. And that's what I'm piping today, and it's wonderful.
Great.
Margot, it's a great question. What is the best Shavuot dessert to order from Papa Melech? You're hilarious. Thanks for great advertising for me, Margot. This year we have 4 major desserts that are heading out around the country. I will say that, and maybe we'll just divert for 1 second. When we talked about Corona and really bringing us back to basics, one of the amazing things that happened here at the bakery is that we changed the format of everything. We didn't have a restaurant, but we wanted to keep our staff. So one of the things that we've done now is we're sending stuff all around the country. And it's been just an amazing thing to watch friends or like old high school friends or people I went to summer camp a million years ago who take interest and who are, you know, hopeful, cautiously optimistic for us. And so my answer is going to be the best one. There's a wild berry tart floating around here that I haven't tasted yet, but it looks pretty good. This is also a great time to say, follow us on Instagram or Facebook to just keep up to date about things that we're doing because we seem to be changing at breakneck speed. Happily, part 2 is focaccias. And here I'm gonna clear this part off and I'm gonna bring David in for a second as my sous chef, even though as we all know, he's the real chef. We're gonna start off, again, the recipe is gonna head your way in a little bit. What I'm gonna say to you again is
One sec. Okay, and when you do this part, now you're unmuted, just move your camera back so we can see what you're doing because we can't see.
Absolutely. Okay, Yael's in charge of all camera back. Oh, that's perfect.
Perfect.
Listen, that's why you need the 20-year-olds around in your life. I would love some of this. And I would love that one first. Okay. You're gonna find your favorite dough recipe. If you have a pizza dough recipe you've been using for years, that's great. If you have a place at your corner, like Papa Melech that makes dough, that's great too. Just grab some. The recipe itself for the dough is almost insignificant. What's important is that you feel comfortable with the dough. What we're using now, the recipe, even for the back, I think, yeah. The recipe that we're using now is really 1 teaspoon of yeast that goes into 1 cup of water that's room temperature. And then you're gonna add 3 cups of flour. Oh, I need a little bit of flour here. Oh, I thought. 3 cups of flour, 1.5 teaspoons of yeast, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. So what you're looking at is something like this. Once you've made the dough, and this is why it's complicated a little bit today, is you need to let it rise. So focaccia dough or pizza dough is the best of them all. They rise faster, certainly faster than 22 hours. And so what we're gonna do now is David's gonna show you technique because this is not my place. David is a baker. I'm just baker's wife. Let's go. Hi, Dave. Welcome to my TV screen and all these people.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, this is the first time actually that I'm wearing an apron back here also. Isn't that exciting for me? Got a new apron. Okay, we're looking, I know.
This is 2 for 1. This is a total relationship love story. Thank you for continuing. Go on.
Oh, I'm dying. Talk it out, Dave.
Okay, we're going to, you want to start with a ball. Okay, let it rest as a ball, and then you can kind of open it up as a circle much easier once it starts off as a ball. So you can kind of open it up like this, and then keep stretching it along the edges like this. Then just keep opening it. Just try to keep yourself uniform. You could use a rolling pin. It's pretty easy to do. Okay, So you want to keep flattening it out, opening it. Some people do this with their knuckles.
Show off, you people. Show off, you people do this with their knuckles. Go ahead.
No. And we're just gonna kind of slowly open it. You want to keep it even thickness. You don't want to get too thin in the middle. You're constantly stretching it from the thick edges. Okay, and then you're open and you're ready to go.
Okay, once you've done something, oh no, you don't get to leave yet. Once you've done something like this, and the truth is that I really enjoy it in an actual shape. I'll tell you a true story. We started making matzah right when Corona happened. We closed this whole factory and we ran back to our first place in Rosh Hashanah and we started making matzah. We had a very, very small team and they were bakers in our bread line. And for the first 2 days, they could not understand how to make a circle and it made them crazy. They went home and they cut shapes and they started researching how do you make a circle. And also, I mean, we mocked them a little. We did.
We all laughed.
We all laughed in times of Corona. There's something that I like about this shape. You don't always get this shape. Also, once I have the shape, I need to let it rest for a while, right?
Yeah, you need to let it, open it up, let it rest, let it rise a little bit so you can get good air pockets when you bake it.
Good air pockets when you bake it. And the other thing is, I think that what we do, meaning we've let it rest enough. And what we do now is olive oil it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So here is my beautiful platter of small things. This is also a shout out to Dikla, our chef, who, meaning I sort of like would like to send a link to my staff to be like, oh, here we are, we're so cute, come watch us. But the truth is, the amount of work that is going on here, thank God, Baruch Hashem, Erev Shavuot, is that everybody is so tired that I'm praying that they're all sleeping. But before she left, she cut everything up that I wanted. For me, I like focaccias with very, very small cut vegetables. You see how it's diced? And also it can be all, you're laughing at me? I do, I like it like that. I like it like this, it's so pretty. Okay, olive oil, the whole thing? Okay, our hands are clean. You always have to wash your hands, yeah?
With soap.
With soap, in the age of Corona.
Okay.
Okay, once it's all olive oily, you're gonna decide how to sort of decorate your focaccia. Some people throw everything on. Some people like to put designs on. I've been watching, there's a great, I don't even remember who it is on Instagram. They've been doing these very, very full focaccias with vegetables. And so what I'm trying to do now in recreating it is I wanna make lines. So I have my line of tomatoes. I've got my line of onions. Again, meaning this is really, when you taste it now, it's probably better if everything is mixed together. But for the aesthetics of it, I love the idea of everything sort of line by line blending into each other. So I'm using here tomatoes, onions, zucchini, olives. We would love a great olive over here. And I'm using mixed. A lot of this is for colors. I see that there are, forget your podcast, whoever you're writing that is hilarious. Okay, what you're seeing now is that it's full of all sorts of different colors, which is the way that I like it. Again, in my life of being very, very superficial, right? 22 hours is too long for bread, always desserts need to be pretty, versus being very full of depth and omek. So I like it because it's gonna be very, very colorful and pretty, and I like the idea of bringing it to the table looking like this. We're gonna add melech gas, what is it, kosher salt?
Okay.
What do you call it?
Mouth gas.
We're gonna add some salt to it. I would also recommend, if you have at home pink Himalayan sea salt, that's a go-to for us. I would also recommend that. A little bit of sesame seeds, because I feel like that's the Israeli way to do things. Do you not feel that way?
Middle East.
The Middle Eastern, I would not put sesame seeds on, but there's so many, I know, there's so many of you, maybe someone will like it. This focaccia is gonna be baked, and I'm gonna bring it to George and Rafi's house, because it's hilarious that the two of you are sitting there watching it. You won the focaccia of the evening. This is gonna go in. David, does it need to rest now once it goes in?
No.
Now it does not need to rest. David's gonna put it on his fancy heel, and he's gonna head to the oven. In the meantime, I'm going to see if any of you have questions. Are there any questions right now? Oh, the temperature and the time.
Temperature and time.
Okay. Oh, it's gonna go at 240, which is what, David, 400? It's at 450 for about 10 to 15 minutes. You want to make sure that it's brown around the edges. And because this is a cooking segment and you don't want to stay all night, yeah, can you pass me that one? When it comes out, it looks something like this. Isn't that pretty and colorful? It's so.
How many minutes did you say?
I think that it goes in for 10 minutes. Does that sound right?
Still gets a nice, good color.
Meaning David's going to say, until it gets a nice color, which for me always is scary because it just means that I need to sit by the oven. I would say you should start off at 10 minutes and then probably in at 12, 14, and 16 minutes. It shouldn't go longer than that. Meaning it's at a very, very high temperature. So that's really. Oh, Andy and Emily. Andy and Emily, you might also be able to win a focaccia if you drive from Beersheba to my house right now. Okay, so what we've covered today, first of all, Yael, can you pass me that? The ones that you're doing. While I've been sitting here, meaning you're looking at half of the table, behind me is the mess, meaning over here it's all very pretty. Behind me is Yael doing all sorts of delightful things, yeah. While we've been sitting here, Yael has been taking all the leftovers. She's taken a smaller cup, oh, maybe I have to put it here, a smaller mousse cup, and she's just added layers upon layers of all sorts of goodness. Again, it's so easy to do. Meaning this one has the mousse on the bottom, this one has the mousse on the top with a bottom that looks almost like a terrarium. It looks like, you know, that dirt cake that people used to make. This is a no, meaning you can't get it wrong. You can't. You'd have to try so hard to get this wrong. Focaccia also is something that can come to the table very, very easily. Okay, we have hit our great making of things. Are there questions?
There are a couple of questions that I've gotten. Number one, do you suggest greasing the baking sheet that you place the dough?
So I recommend greasing the baking sheet. Meaning, I'm going to say no, but I don't have an answer. Dave, is that what's the answer? No, you definitely, we're saying that you don't need to grease the baking sheet.
Okay, how do you reheat the
The
focaccia?
dough rise. Hi, Yedida. Yedida, I actually believe you're friends with my sister. Is that true? So nice. She's such a great person. My sister happens to be a great human being. Okay.
How do you reheat focaccia?
What?
How do you reheat the focaccia?
So reheating focaccia is a little bit complicated. One of the things that we found in the bakery is we only ever make them on Friday morning because it's one of those things that you want to take and eat fresh. So what I would say is I would recommend it for dinner. I would recommend to do it then. And the answer is you're going to take it from the oven and you're going to just put it on the plata. Sometimes when they cool down and you reheat, you sort of lose some of the freshness to them. So this is one of those dishes, whereas I would say a mousse is very forgiving. A focaccia, I would say, is time sensitive. While you're all sitting here, and I would say for Shavuot, I recommend doing it like this, but I will say that one of our customers gave us a fabulous recipe of making a meat focaccia, which is taking the same dough and sauteing like really excellent deli in like a sweet and sour chili sauce or a barbecue sauce, and then sort of smearing it on top of the focaccia and tossing it into the oven. We have a lot of boys in our house. They seem to really enjoy that. When is the, Gracie Milstein, the TV cooking show debut has been put on hold until maybe I learn how to do this in a very significant and thoughtful way. Oh, a question from David, yeah.
You can do your focaccia on a pizza brick on your grill.
David also suggests, but it feels very snobby, that you can also make your focaccia on your pizza brick on your grill. For all of those who have it, you could raise your hands. Not sure.
Andy has one.
Oh, Andy has one, so then it's fine. Okay, so now, keep going.
Rena Schaum had a question. I don't know if she's...
Oh, Rena
Yeah,
Schaum.
no, it was all, hi, Devorah, that's me.
Hi.
You've answered all of my questions, Devorah.
And if you look at Jordana Shore's screen, which I don't know if you can, she has made a pie ready to go. If anybody...
No way, I don't see her.
There you go, look at that pie.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Hold on, Yael's gonna tech support me into that world. Well, do I do it on grid? Do I pin my video? It's so complicated. Jordana, that's totally smart. Meaning,
I got too lazy. I was like,
No,
I'm
it's
not
not-
going to get all those little cups. No way.
no, but that's so smart because that also means, it's captive. It's totally captive. It's totally perfect. Meaning I would say for focaccias also, and initially that's what I thought you did. I thought you did the focaccia in there. But to do it like that, it's crazy simple. And then also, Jordana, what I would say is with the toppings, you want to line the toppings in different ways straight across the top. It could be stunning. Very nice. Okay.
Thank you.
Adam, Holly, Adam. Okay, everybody, this was so wonderful.
Is one
Thank
more
you.
question. If you make individual focaccias, do they need less time than if you make a big one?
For what? Sorry?
If you make individual small focaccias, do they need less time to bake?
The answer is yes. Again, what I'm going to say to you, but Jordan, I'm dying that you're doing it. I'm so proud of you. It's so good. I'm focused there. The answer is yes, meaning you're going to follow the goal of a focaccia is really to watch for it to brown, right? So if you're using a smaller one, you are going to have to pay attention a little bit more carefully to make sure that once it browns, you're taking it out.
So I do have another question, actually. I had made the focaccia dough earlier so that it could rise the way we were asked to do, but I didn't bake it. Now, I don't want to bake it now because we've already eaten dinner and we're not going to eat anymore tonight. Should I just put this dough in the refrigerator and then, take it out tomorrow, let's say, and do I punch it down, let it rise again?
So what we would recommend you doing, humbly, we would recommend, is put it into the freezer. Because if you put it in the fridge, it's going to keep rising and rising and rising, and we don't want it to sort of
Okay.
You don't want it to, as David says, eat up all the sugars. You can put it into the freezer and then pull it out when you're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Chag Sameach.
I think that was fun. This was great for me, obviously.
Thank you so much. This was amazing for everybody. We all learned a lot and had a lot of fun doing it, and really appreciate your being willing.
Listen, when Papa Melech opens, you guys are all invited for a nice cup of coffee to sit here to talk about baking or cooking or whatever it is, because that's my wheelhouse, sitting and drinking coffee and schmoozing.
We would love that. And I want to invite everybody
Sameach.
on the next part to also please feel free to add your ideas for what you'd like the Eden Center to do next. This was a great combination of Torah and real life skills, and that is part of what we're all about. So thank you, Yael. Thank you, Devorah. Thank you, Yedida. And to all the women who organized. We are always looking for new ideas. We want to hear from you. We want to keep you in the loop. If you haven't liked Eden on Facebook, if you haven't liked Papa Melech on Facebook, please do that. And the next program that we have planned is about men's sexuality and the challenges that come up over the course of life. So definitely feel free to also register for that program and keep your eye out. We look forward to hearing from you, and Chag Sameach.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.